She gave the world its fiercest anthem of survival. But when the lights went out and disco died, Gloria Gaynor had to learn if she could live the song herself. One song made her immortal. One song almost destroyed her. This is the untold story of what it costs to become the voice of survival. The lights dim in a small church in Newark, New Jersey. It's a Tuesday evening in 2019, far removed from the glittering disco balls and roaring crowds of Studio 54. An older woman stands at the pulpit, her voice still powerful, still unmistakable. Gloria Gaynor, now 76 years old, sings a gospel hymn to a congregation of maybe 100 people. The woman who once commanded stages before tens of thousands now finds peace in this humble setting. But as her voice rises, filling every corner of the sanctuary, you can still hear it. That indomitable spirit, that refusal to break, that anthem of survival that once shook the world. 40 years earlier, that same voice had become the soundtrack to a revolution. A disco queen had accidentally created a battle cry. A breakup song had transformed into a manifesto of resilience for millions who refused to be defeated. Women escaping abuse, LGBTQ+ people fighting for their right to exist, anyone who had ever been told they weren't strong enough to survive. But here's what nobody saw coming. The woman who sang about survival would spend decades fighting to survive the very song that made her immortal. Because Gloria Gaynor didn't just sing about survival. She had to live it, again and again and again. The story everyone knows is simple. Gloria Gaynor recorded a song in 1978. That song became an anthem. She became a legend. The end. But the truth is far more complex, far more painful, far more human. The truth is that Gloria Gaynor's greatest hit almost destroyed her. That the industry that lifted her up discarded her just as quickly. That the woman who became synonymous with strength spent years broken, bankrupt, and invisible. So here's the question nobody asks. What happens when you become famous for surviving, and then you have to survive your fame? September 1978. Polydor Records releases a new album by Gloria Gaynor called Love Tracks. The record label doesn't think much of it. They're pushing the A-side single, a song called Substitute. Track 2 on the B-side is just filler, a breakup anthem with a pulsing disco beat, written by Freddie Perrin and Dino Ficaris. The label executives barely remember its name. That song is called I Will Survive. Within weeks, something extraordinary happens. DJs start flipping the record. They ignore Substitute entirely. They play the B-side instead. And when that song hits the speakers, when that opening piano progression echoes through the clubs, something ignites. People don't just dance, they stop, they listen, they feel, and then they erupt. At Studio 54, at the Paradise Garage, at underground clubs across America, the same scene plays out night after night. The opening notes begin. The crowd recognizes it immediately. And then Gloria's voice cuts through the darkness. A testimony of betrayal, of pain, of picking yourself up from the floor and walking out the door stronger than before. Women who've been beaten down by abusive partners hear their own story. Gay men facing persecution and violence hear a call to arms. Survivors of every kind find their anthem. The song doesn't just climb the charts, it detonates. It hits #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It wins the Grammy for Best Disco Recording in 1980. The only song in that category to ever win the award because the category was discontinued the following year, as if the universe knew nothing would ever top it. Gloria Gaynor becomes overnight one of the most recognizable voices on the planet. But fame is a funny thing. It gives you everything and then it asks for a price you didn't know you'd have to pay. Because what nobody tells you is this. When you become famous for one song, that song becomes your prison. When you create an anthem that powerful, you don't own it anymore. It owns you. And Gloria Gaynor was about to learn that lesson in the cruelest way possible. But to understand how it all came crashing down, we must first understand how it all began. Newark, New Jersey, 1943. World War II still rages across the globe. America is sending its sons to die on foreign soil while maintaining brutal segregation at home. Black families navigate a world designed to keep them down. And into this world, on September 7th, Gloria Fowles is born, the seventh of 9 children in a working-class family struggling to survive. Her father leaves when she's young, a ghost in her childhood story. Her mother, Queenie Mae Proctor, works multiple jobs to keep the family afloat, cleaning white people's houses during the day, doing laundry at night, her hands perpetually raw and cracked from chemicals and exhaustion. There's never enough money, never enough food, never enough warmth in the winter or coolness in the summer. Just survival day after day after day. But young Gloria discovers something that makes survival bearable: music. She's 3 years old the first time she sings in public, standing on a chair in her grandmother's living room, belting out gospel hymns she's heard at church. Her voice, even then, even that young, is extraordinary. It's powerful and pure, carrying a depth of emotion that seems impossible for a child. Her family stares in wonder. Where did this come from? How does this tiny girl contain such a voice? The church becomes her sanctuary. In that sacred space, surrounded by other black families seeking refuge from a hostile world, Gloria's voice soars. Gospel music teaches her something crucial: that pain can be transformed into power, that suffering can become testimony, that survival isn't just endurance, it's triumph. By the time she's a teenager, Gloria knows music is her escape route, not just from poverty, though God knows she wants to escape that, but from invisibility. In a world that treats black women as if they don't exist, that voice makes her impossible to ignore. But escape isn't easy. Newark in the 1960s is a powder keg. Racial tensions explode into riots in 1967. The city burns. Young Gloria watches from her window as the neighborhood tears itself apart, as anger and frustration finally boil over. She understands that rage. She feels it in her own chest. But she also understands something else. Rage alone won't save you. You have to channel it. You have to transform it into something that can't be destroyed. Could this struggling young girl with the impossible voice have imagined what was coming? Could she have known that her greatest triumph and her deepest pain would be inextricably linked? That the anthem of survival she would one day sing would first require her to nearly break? At 17, she starts singing in local clubs. Dingy bars in Jersey, small venues where the crowds are drunk and hostile, where being a young black woman on stage means enduring catcalls and worse. She gets rejected constantly. Not pretty enough, one club owner tells her. Not sexy enough, says another. They want her to be something she's not, a fantasy, an object, a decoration. They don't understand that her power isn't in her appearance. It's in her voice, in her presence, in the way she commands a room simply by opening her mouth. But Gloria is learning a crucial lesson, one that will define her entire career. The world will try to tell you who you should be. Survival means refusing to listen. She takes every gig she can get. She sings with a band called the Soul Satisfiers, touring the Chitlin Circuit, the network of venues across the segregated South that welcomed black performers. The money is terrible. The conditions are worse. She sleeps on couches, in cars, sometimes not at all. She eats when she can afford to. But she's performing. She's improving. She's surviving. And slowly, painfully, she starts to get noticed. By 1971, Gloria has changed her name from Fowles to Gaynor, a stage name that sounds glamorous, sophisticated, untouchable. She's 28 years old and still scraping by, still taking whatever gig she can find, still believing that breakthrough is just around the corner. That corner comes in the form of a man named Jay Ellis, a manager who sees something in her that others have missed. Not just talent. Plenty of singers have talent. But hunger, determination, that rare combination of vulnerability and strength that makes a voice unforgettable. Ellis books her to sing at a New Jersey nightclub called the Wagon Wheel. It's not much, a mid-tier venue with a dance floor and a modest stage, but on this particular night someone important is in the audience. Someone who can change everything. That someone is Clive Davis. Davis is a legend in the music industry, the president of Columbia Records, the man with the golden ear who's launched the careers of Janis Joplin, Santana, and countless others. He's at the Wagon Wheel almost by accident, stopping by on a friend's recommendation. He's not expecting much, just another club, another singer, another night. And then Gloria starts to sing. Davis later describes the moment as electric. Her voice cuts through the noise of the crowd, demanding attention, commanding respect. She's performing covers, Motown hits, soul classics, but she's making them her own, infusing every note with raw emotion and undeniable power. By the time she finishes her set, Davis has made up his mind. He approaches her after the show. "Have you recorded anything?" he asks. Gloria, stunned that Clive Davis is talking to her, can barely respond. "Not yet," she manages. "You will," he says. "I'm going to make sure of it. It's the moment every struggling artist dreams of. The fairy tale breakthrough. The hand reaching down from the heavens to lift you up." But Gloria is learning quickly that the music industry is no fairy tale. It's a business. And businesses are built on exploitation. Davis connects her with MGM Records, but the deal that follows is far from ideal. The label wants to shape her, mold her, turn her into their vision of a marketable star. They put her in the studio with producers who don't understand her voice, who try to smooth out its rough edges, who want her to sound like everyone else on the radio. Her first single, Honeybee, released in 1973, barely makes a ripple. The second does even worse. The label starts to lose interest. Once again, Gloria is facing rejection, facing the very real possibility that her big break was just a tease, a brief glimpse of success before sliding back into obscurity. But then something changes. Disco is emerging. The early 1970s see the birth of a new sound. Pulsing bass lines, soaring strings, four-on-the-floor beats designed to make bodies move. It's music born from Black and Latino communities, from underground gay clubs in New York and Philadelphia, from people who've been marginalized and are claiming space to celebrate themselves, to express their joy and pain through dance. Gloria's voice, that powerful, emotional, full-throated voice, is perfect for disco. Not the shallow, vapid disco that critics will later mock, but the real disco, the disco that's about liberation and ecstasy and community. In 1974, she records Never Can Say Goodbye, a Jackson 5 cover transformed into a disco epic. The song is revolutionary. At nearly 8 minutes long, it's designed for continuous dance floor play, building and building until the crowd is lost in the music. It becomes a massive hit, reaching number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on the dance charts. Finally, after years of struggle, Gloria Gaynor is a star. She follows it up with more hits. Reach Out, I'll Be There, Honeybee, re-released and remixed, I Am What I Am. She becomes known as the Queen of Disco, performing at the most glamorous clubs in the world, commanding stages with that voice, that presence, that undeniable power. But here's what they don't tell you about success. It's fragile, it's fleeting, and it can disappear in an instant. Was the success she achieved truly worth all the pain she endured? She's about to find out that the pain has only just begun. The lights of Studio 54 blaze like a second sun. Inside the most famous nightclub in the world, celebrities mingle with drag queens, artists dance with bankers, inhibitions dissolve under the mirror ball's fragmenting light. It's 1977, the height of disco fever, and Gloria Gaynor is royalty here. She takes the stage in a shimmering gown that catches every beam of light, her presence commanding instant attention. When she performs, the crowd doesn't just listen, they worship. This is her kingdom. This is her moment. This is what she fought for through all those years of rejection and poverty and doubt. But if you look closely, if you ignore the glamour and the lights and the screaming fans, you can see something else in Gloria's eyes. A weariness, a loneliness, a question she can't quite answer. Is this really it? Is this what survival looks like? Because the truth that nobody sees is this. Gloria Gaynor is exhausted. The touring schedule is brutal. She's performing almost every night, flying between cities, barely sleeping, surviving on adrenaline and ambition. Her voice, that incredible instrument that made her famous, is starting to show signs of strain. She develops nodes on her vocal cords, painful growths that make singing agony. Doctors tell her she needs to rest, to stop performing, to let her voice heal. She can't afford to stop. The music industry has a short memory. Miss a few shows, lose a few months of momentum, and you're forgotten, replaced, erased. So she pushes through the pain. She takes the stage night after night, smiling through the agony, delivering the performances her fans demand. Behind the glamorous facade, she's collapsing. Behind the image of the invincible disco queen, she's breaking. And then there's her personal life, or rather the absence of one. In 1979, Gloria marries Linwood Simon, a club owner who becomes her manager. On the surface, it seems perfect, a partnership of love and business, two people building an empire together. But the reality is far darker. Simon is controlling, demanding, jealous. He isolates Gloria from her friends and family, monitors her every move, makes decisions about her career without consulting her. What appears to the world as a supportive husband managing his wife's career is actually something closer to captivity, freedom versus captivity. It's the paradox that will define Gloria Gaynor's entire existence. Her voice liberates millions, but she herself is trapped. She sings about walking out the door, but she can't leave her own prison. Gloria later admits that she spent much of her 25-year marriage feeling desperately alone. She was surrounded by people, bandmates, backup singers, crew members, fans, but she had no one to confide in, no one who saw her as anything other than Gloria Gaynor, the performer. The woman behind the voice was invisible even to herself. "I lived many years lonely inside my own marriage," she later writes in her memoir. The glamorous life everyone envied was, in reality, a gilded cage. But in 1978, before the marriage fully reveals its darkness, something extraordinary happens. Something that will define Gloria Gaynor forever and complicate her life in ways she never imagined. Her label, Polydor Records, brings her into the studio to record a new album. The sessions are rushed, uninspired. Nobody is particularly excited about the material. One song in particular, written by Freddie Perren and Dino Ficaris as a breakup anthem, is recorded almost as an afterthought. The label doesn't even want it as the lead single. They bury it on the B-side. That song changes everything. When DJs start playing the track instead of the intended single, when that opening piano progression starts echoing through clubs, something profound happens. The song isn't just a hit, it becomes a phenomenon. It transcends disco, transcends music entirely, and becomes something larger. A cultural touchstone, a rallying cry, a testament to human resilience. Women leaving abusive relationships adopt it as their anthem. The LGBTQ+ community facing discrimination and violence claims it as a song of defiance and survival. People facing cancer, job loss, depression, any kind of struggle, they all hear their own story in Gloria's voice. The song wins a Grammy. It reaches #1. It becomes the most played song in clubs around the world. Gloria Gaynor is no longer just a disco queen. She's an icon. But here's the cruel irony. The song that makes her immortal also becomes her prison. Because after its success, nobody wants to hear anything else from Gloria Gaynor. She releases other songs, other albums, but all anyone wants is that one anthem. She becomes known as a one-hit wonder, An absurd designation for an artist with multiple chart successes, but perception becomes reality. In the public mind, Gloria Gaynor is the woman who sang that song and nothing else matters. The golden cage tightens. She's famous for singing about freedom, but she's more trapped than ever. Trapped by expectation, by nostalgia, by the suffocating weight of a single moment of brilliance. And then disco dies. On July 12, 1979, a shock jock named Steve Dahl organizes Disco Demolition Night at Comiskey Park in Chicago. Between games of a baseball doubleheader, thousands of disco records are blown up in center field while a crowd of over 50,000 people chants "Disco sucks." The riot that follows makes national news. It's framed as a musical rebellion, rock fans rejecting vapid dance music. But anyone paying attention knows the truth. It's backlash against black culture, against gay culture, against everything disco represents. The mainstream white America that briefly embraced disco is now viciously rejecting it. And the artists who rode the wave are collateral damage. Gloria's career evaporates almost overnight. The label drops her. The bookings dry up. The money stops flowing. The woman who was selling out arenas is suddenly unable to book a decent club gig. She's in her mid-30s. She's broken. She's watching her career, the thing she fought so hard to build, the thing she sacrificed everything for, disappear. Behind all that glamour, was there an unbearable loneliness that nobody saw? The answer is yes. And it's about to get much worse. The 1980s should have been Gloria Gaynor's decade. She has the Grammy. She has the credibility. She has the voice. But none of it matters. Disco is dead, and she's been buried with it. The phone stops ringing. The offers stop coming. The industry that once fought over her now acts as if she never existed. She goes from performing for thousands to singing at small venues for a few dozen people, when she can get booked at all. The money she made during her peak years disappears quickly, mismanaged by her husband and drained by poor investments. She faces bankruptcy. The woman whose voice once filled stadiums can barely pay her bills, but the financial crisis is nothing compared to the emotional devastation. Gloria is battling depression, a darkness that threatens to swallow her entirely. The voice that sang about survival is now questioning whether survival is possible. She has suicidal thoughts, standing at the edge of giving up entirely. There were nights, she later admits, and when I didn't want to wake up in the morning. And the cruelest part? Everyone assumes she's fine. After all, she's Gloria Gaynor. She survived. That's what the song says, right? Nobody sees the woman behind the anthem slowly drowning. Her marriage deteriorates further. Simon becomes more controlling, more abusive, more suffocating. He isolates her from everyone who might help, convincing her that she needs him, that she's nothing without him. The psychological manipulation is devastating. Gloria, the woman who sang about walking out the door and never turning back, feels trapped in her own life. The irony is crushing. She gave the world an anthem of liberation and became its prisoner. She taught millions how to survive and forgot how to save herself. Did this tragic downfall mark her end? Or was it simply the tipping point of deeper problems that had been building all along? The answer comes in the form of faith. In the late 1980s, Gloria has a spiritual awakening. She finds God, or rather she rediscovers the faith she grew up with in those Newark churches, the gospel hymns she sang as a child. She realizes that she's been searching for validation in all the wrong places, in record sales, in fame, in the approval of an industry that never truly valued her. She starts attending church regularly. She reads scripture, she prays. And slowly, painfully, she begins to rebuild herself from the inside out. It's not a sudden transformation. There's no magical moment where everything becomes perfect. But gradually, Gloria finds a new sense of purpose. She realizes that her worth isn't tied to chart positions or Grammy awards. She's valuable simply because she exists, because she's a creation of something larger than the music industry. This spiritual awakening gives her the strength to finally confront her marriage. In 2005, after 25 years of emotional abuse and control, Gloria divorces Linwood Simon. It's one of the hardest decisions of her life, leaving after so long, admitting that she stayed in a toxic relationship for decades. But it's also liberation. "I finally sang my own song," she says later, referencing the anthem that made her famous. "I finally survived." The cage door opens. After decades of captivity, to fame, to expectation, to an abusive marriage, Gloria Gaynor walks free. But survival in the music industry means reinvention. And Gloria is about to discover that her greatest hit, the song she once resented for overshadowing everything else, might actually be her salvation. In the 1990s and 2000s, something unexpected happens. New generations discover the song. It's featured in movies and TV shows. It becomes a staple at pride parades. It's sung by contestants on talent shows around the world. The song that was buried as a B-side becomes one of the most enduring anthems in popular music history. And people want to hear Gloria perform it. Not as a nostalgia act, not as a relic of disco's past, but as a living testament to the message she sang about 4 decades ago. She starts performing again, but on her terms now. She chooses her venues carefully. She sings at LGBTQ+ events, at women's conferences, at cancer survivors' gatherings. She embraces the song's meaning, finally understanding that it's bigger than her, that it belongs to everyone who's ever had to find strength they didn't know they possessed. She also releases gospel albums, reconnecting with the sacred music of her childhood. These albums don't sell millions of copies, don't win prestigious awards initially, but they fulfill her in ways that disco never could. She's singing for herself now, not for the industry, not for the charts, not for anyone's approval, but her own. And then, in 2019, something remarkable happens. Her gospel album Testimony wins the Grammy Award for Best Roots Gospel Album. 41 years after her first Grammy for a disco song, she wins again. This time for the music that saved her soul. The circle completes itself. The girl who sang gospel in Newark churches, who became the queen of disco, who nearly died in the wreckage of fame, has returned home. Can anyone ever truly escape from the shadow of their darkest moments? Gloria is proving that escape isn't the goal. Transformation is. Today, Gloria Gaynor is in her early 80s. She still performs occasionally, her voice remarkably preserved, still powerful, still capable of reducing audiences to tears. But she's selective now. She only takes bookings that matter to her, that align with her values, that allow her to be authentic. She lives quietly, far from the spotlight that once consumed her. She's active in her church, volunteers for charitable causes, mentors young singers navigating the same treacherous industry that nearly destroyed her. When asked about her legacy, she's thoughtful, measured. "I don't want to be remembered just for one song," she says. "But if I am, I hope people understand what that song really means. It's not about being invincible. It's about being broken and choosing to get back up anyway." She's written a memoir, spoken candidly about her struggles with depression, about the abusive marriage, about the bankruptcy and the loneliness and the near-total collapse. She's not interested in maintaining the illusion of the flawless disco queen. She wants people to know the truth, that survival is messy, painful, complicated. Were these final decisions acts of surrender, or courageous acts of self-preservation? For Gloria, they were both. She surrendered the fantasy of recapturing her peak fame, and in doing so, she preserved her sanity, her soul, her sense of self. But there's one question that still haunts her, one that she occasionally mentions in interviews. What if the song had never happened? What if it had been just another B-side, forgotten and lost to time? Would her life have been easier? Would she have had a more stable career, one not defined by a single moment of brilliance that overshadowed everything else? She doesn't know. Nobody does. But here's what she's certain of. That song saved lives, literally. She's received thousands of letters over the decades from people telling her that hearing those words at their lowest moment gave them the strength to keep going. Women who left abusive partners, teenagers who didn't commit suicide, cancer patients who found the will to fight. If my suffering gave that song the authenticity it needed to help those people, Gloria says, then it was worth it. It's a staggering admission. The willingness to accept her own pain as the price for someone else's survival. It's both beautiful and heartbreaking, the ultimate act of empathy from a woman who spent years feeling utterly alone. But Gloria Gaynor is not alone anymore. She has her faith, her community, her hard-won peace. She survived the music industry, survived fame, survived her own darkest impulses. She's done more than survive, she's transcended. And that song, it's still playing, still resonating, still giving hope to people who need it. At pride parades in Sao Paulo and San Francisco, at women's marches in London and Sydney, at karaoke bars and wedding receptions and cancer wards and therapy sessions around the world. The song outlived disco. It outlived the 1970s. It outlived the industry that tried to define it and control it. And Gloria Gaynor, the woman behind the voice, has outlived all the people who tried to break her. There's a video from 1979 that surfaced years later. Grainy, poorly lit, but powerful beyond measure. Gloria is performing at a gay club in New York. She's singing that anthem, the one that changed everything. And as the chorus builds, something extraordinary happens. The entire audience, hundreds of people, many of them facing persecution and violence simply for existing, stands up. They're crying, they're singing along, they're holding each other. And Gloria, seeing this, understanding in that moment what she's created, stops singing. She just stands there, microphone hanging at her side, tears streaming down her face, as the crowd sings her words back to her. They're not just singing to her, they're singing with her. They're telling her that her pain wasn't meaningless, that her voice gave them permission to find their own voices, that her survival gave them hope for their own. It's the moment that defines her legacy far more than any Grammy or chart position ever could. Because Gloria Gaynor didn't just sing about survival. She became its living embodiment. She took betrayal and pain and isolation and transformed it into something powerful, something lasting, something that continues to give strength to millions of people she'll never meet. The music industry tried to erase her when disco died. Her husband tried to control her. Depression nearly claimed her. But she's still here, still standing, still singing. And every time that song plays, which is every single day somewhere in the world, Gloria Gaynor survives again. Gloria Gaynor stands in that small church in Newark, far from the disco balls and spotlight. She's singing for a handful of people who see her not as an icon but as a woman of faith, a member of their community, a survivor who chose to keep surviving even when it would have been easier to give up. Her voice rises to the ceiling, powerful and pure, carrying the same emotion it carried 40 years ago on that B-side track that changed the world. But now there's something else in it too. Wisdom, peace, the hard-earned knowledge that comes from walking through fire and emerging scarred but whole. The church crowd sways gently, some with eyes closed, some with hands raised. They're not here for nostalgia. They're here for truth. And Gloria Gaynor, finally, after all these years, is free to give it to them. Outside, the world keeps spinning. That song keeps playing. New generations keep discovering it, claiming it, making it their own. And somewhere, someone is hearing it for the first time at their lowest moment and finding, in Gloria's voice, the strength to take one more step forward. That's the real legacy. Not the awards or the fame or the recognition, but the quiet, profound impact of one woman's voice giving millions of people permission to survive their own stories. Gloria Gaynor did more than survive the music industry. She survived the very fame that tried to consume her. She survived the song that both blessed and cursed her existence. She survived herself, and in doing so, she gave the rest of us a blueprint for survival that has nothing to do with glory or success or public recognition. It's simpler than that, and infinitely harder. You wake up, you face the day, you find your voice, and you refuse to let anyone, not the industry, not abusive partners, not your own despair, take it away from you. Was Gloria Gaynor's life the fairy tale story the anthem suggested? No. It was something more valuable. It was real. It was messy and painful and complicated and human, and that's exactly why it matters. The lights in the church fade to darkness. Gloria's voice carries the final note, then releases it into silence. The congregation sits quietly for a moment, absorbing what they've just experienced. Not a performance, not a show, just truth, raw and unfiltered, delivered by a woman who's earned every note. And then, inevitably, someone starts clapping, then another. Then everyone rising to their feet, applauding not just the song but the woman, not just the voice but the journey, not just the survivor but the life survived. Gloria Gaynor smiles, a genuine smile, not the practiced stage smile of her performing years, but something deeper. She's home, not in Newark, not in any geographical location, but in herself. Finally, fully, completely home. The anthem that made her famous promised survival. But Gloria Gaynor's real achievement was learning that survival without authenticity is just existence. And she refused to merely exist. She demanded, and ultimately found, a life worth surviving for. That's the story they don't tell. That's the truth behind the anthem. That's the real legacy of Gloria Gaynor. Not that she survived, but that she showed us all how survival could be transformed from grim endurance into something approaching grace. If survival itself can become a prison, what does it mean to truly be free? Gloria Gaynor gave us an anthem for resilience. But how many other survivors are still trapped in silence, waiting for their song? She's given us the map. The anthem is the map. Her life is the map. And anyone willing to look closely enough, to listen carefully enough, to understand deeply enough will find in Gloria Gaynor's story a testament to human resilience that transcends music, transcends fame, transcends time itself. She survived, and in surviving, she gave millions of us permission to do the same. That's not just a legacy, that's immortality.